Hello, my name is Ashley Bullock. I'm here from UK Energy Watch to talk about how to heat your building the green and sustainable way. So what we'll be talking about today, decarbonisation, the big conversation of the decade. What is decarbonisation and why is it so important? How to decarbonise your heating and heat your building the green way. And the three main pitfalls to look out for. Finally, I'll be ending on how to start the journey into decarbonisation and develop that long-term strategic plan. So who's UK Energy Watch? We're a leading UK energy management consultancy. We work with clients across the public and private sectors. We have data really at the heart of our operation. We use data to drive energy savings, carbon reduction and behaviour change. And we're a forward-thinking team of energy consultants, electrical and mechanical engineers. And we're driven to really help our clients save energy, money and carbon. So, the big conversation, decarbonisation. We've all heard or been involved in this conversation at one level or another. And as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you know, we've committed to reducing our carbon emissions by 78% by 2035. And this is all part of the larger target of net zero by 2050. And really, the gap between the conversation and the theory and the action to actually put this into practice is where we're at today. If we're going to achieve these net zero targets, then action has to happen now. And we're really at this critical point where we kickstart a decade of change and evolution from an energy system which is reliant on fossil fuels to a clean, electrified energy system. So net zero by 2050 hinges on an unprecedented clean technology push to 2030, which we are just getting started on. We've all noticed the changes. That's just the start of things really. And the 2020s is the decade of massive clean energy expansion. We're seeing electric cars becoming mainstream. Dates been put in to stop the production and manufacturing of fossil fueled cars, petrol cars, and it's the heating is really the next step in this journey that we're in. And the graph shows it there, but we've all seen it, we've all heard it on the news, we've seen the wind farms. This is happening, and it's great to see the renewable energy generation in the UK. You can just see over the past decade really, wind has been a massive renewable source for the UK. Solar PV's up there, hydropower, and other renewable sources, and we're at this point where we now have this way of generating clean green electricity, and that is really where we're at in terms of decarbonised heating. So what is decarbonisation? Decarbonisation is the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions. It's replacing high carbon fossil fuel power sources, oil and gas, with low carbon clean electrified power sources, ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps. Another way of putting this is it's a low carbon electrification of using clean electricity instead of other forms of energy. So diesel, petrol, as I've said before, moving into electric vehicles. Transportation is becoming electrified. Heating is next. So why decarbonise? Other than it's essential for us to meet our targets, it is the commercial, domestic and industrial heating forms of heating has to evolve and change from fossil fuel to clean electric forms of heating. It's essential for us to hit our targets. So it's really as simple as that this is a journey that we're on. But from a more sort of individual reason and why should we as business owners and operations, why should we decarbonise? Other than obviously rising energy costs, enhancing our company's brand, we see it in advertisements on billboards. The leading companies and operations around the world are really starting to take the lead on this now. There are many benefits to it, but at the forefront, it's really organisations recognising that this is essential now as we move into this new age, this new low carbon technology world. That to be a leading brand, you have to be sustainable. You have to run low carbon operations, and if that doesn't drive you, the increase in costs may. So, increase in climate change levy from the 1st of April. The government under pressure to hit targets, the net zero targets. It means carbon taxes are coming. There's no doubt about that. So it's going to become more and more expensive to stay on fuels such as gas and petrol and diesel. So it's either lead now or really be driven by the pain of staying on high carbon fuels. So how to decarbonise and heat your building the green way. This is a complex subject. It's not as simple as just changing a boiler or changing some radiators. There has to be a lot of thought that goes into this. Fabric first is always the first step in the strategy. It's asking the question, is your building leaking heat? And if it is, then there's no point in putting in a new efficient low carbon heat source, because that heat is just going to continue to escape out the walls, out of the windows. So it's plugging those gaps first. It's using things like thermography to obtain where is the heat coming out, or even a micro step from that is looking at the age of the building and sort of working out the efficiency of what is. So it's improving the thermal efficiency as a step one, and once that is done, or at least the design and plan of that is in place, then it's designing a low carbon heat source which is correct for your building. Now, something which I'll touch on in a couple of slides, but just to sort of start this plant this idea first, it's understanding that yes, we're coming off gas, we're coming off oil heating, which is an improvement to carbon efficiency. However, you're moving from gas, which is quite financially a cheap fuel, to electric. So and at the moment, electric's more expensive than gas. Now that I think will change, or at least the gap will close. But there's a financial element that we always bring up with our clients to ensure that at the end of this, you're not going to be financially worse off. So, and the key to that bit is efficiency. So we're putting more load into the electric circuits by putting in a low carbon electric heat source. So how can we offset that by building in more efficiencies into the building? How can we generate generate electricity so you're not buying this electricity from the grid? So that's that step, and then and there's other things to think about, which I'll touch on in another slide or two, about the capacity of your electric infrastructure. So a lot to think about. So the actual technology, I'm not going to focus too much on today, because there's different ways and forms of low carbon heating. The more obvious ones, ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, they're the ones that we're doing more with at the moment. Air source is definitely the most affordable technology, but ground source, depending on the site, might be a better option. There's more that goes into the initial installation and planning and infrastructure of it, but once it's in, it can be more efficient if the site is correct. There's other ways of tapping into district heating systems, biomass boilers, solar thermal, so heating the water using a standalone solar thermal system. So there's multiple technologies, and it's just the key bit though is making sure it's designed correctly for your site. So the advantages are highly efficient. It's a digital technology. Once it's electrified, it can be controlled. It can balance the supply and demand for heating, and it's sustainable. Pitfalls to avoid, which I touched on slightly before, is if there's risks involved. If it's not planned and implemented correctly, then there can be problems. Obviously, is there enough heat that can be distributed all year round? Is the infrastructure correct? Are the radiators correct? Is the pipe work good enough, or does that need to be changed? What we're finding, certainly in the public sector and schools, is the infrastructure. They just don't have the infrastructure, so it needs extra capacity. So that's something that has to be thought about from day one. Is there enough capacity in electrically, or do we need to apply to the grid to have more capacity put in, so you can put more load into your electric circuits using the heat pump? So sounds complex, it is to a degree, but what I'm trying to get across today is really this has to be thought through and designed properly. What can be better than using natural resources to heat the building? So manufacturing process, there's often lots of wasted heat, depending on what's being manufactured, but like dairy farms are great. That's things that can be tapped into, so the heat that's escaping from the manufacturing process can be captured and redistributed into the heat in the building. So that is a really sustainable, efficient way of producing heat for the building. So if there is an opportunity for that would certainly be our advice to explore. And there are grants to put in feasibility studies and sort of design this before it's done to make sure that actually this is going to work. And if it does, then excellent. Now, building and energy management controls, or system controls. I've had to put this in because it's essential, really, with any low carbon heat source, to have an element of control. It doesn't necessarily need a full BEMS system, but an element of control to put in zonal heating, making sure that yes, we now have a low carbon heat source, but we're not using it when we don't need to. So zoning out the different areas of the building. If you've got different parts of the operation that work at different times, then you want to be able to control that heating, and that's another benefit of electric heating. It's controllable, and it gives you data as well that you can continue to learn from. So always, where possible, put in a BEMS system so you've got that controllability. So where do you start? Conscious of time, I'm pushing over slightly. So journey to road decarbonisation. It's putting a plan together. It's mapping this out before it's done, and this is a 1 to 5 year plus journey with a full holistic approach of everything that I've touched on today. Funding options, there are multiple grants, whether that's for feasibility studies, depending on the size of the operation and the system, to actually funding the equipment. So there's definitely an appetite for finance. Companies got an appetite to offer finance solutions, and the government are putting certain grants, which I think will only increase as we continue this journey to hitting our targets. We've got lots of examples, case studies, which I'm conscious of time. So I just want to end really on 3 key takeaways. Fabric first approach. Is your building leaking heat? That's the first thing that needs to be addressed before any type of low carbon heating. And secondly, develop a strategic decarbonisation plan to replace your gas oil heating with a low carbon heating technology. This is happening, it's just a matter of when. Carbon reduction, electricity costs, electrical infrastructure, data to drive the right decisions so it's designed correctly. And thirdly is looking at this from a full holistic approach. How else can you build in efficiencies so your electricity usage is down as much as possible, and can you generate some electricity now to build that clean electricity, renewable electricity to power your low carbon heat source. So we'd love to help you. If you need any advice, I've got any questions, reach out to us. Give us a call, connect with us on LinkedIn or Twitter, or jump on the website and give us an email, or speak to Lee or Katie today. And we'd love to help, whether it's a simple question or you really want to take that first step into creating a decarbonisation plan. We'd love to help. Have a great rest of the day, and thanks for your time.